who needs Bellingham more, Man United or Liverpool?
Question. Listen, I think the kid's a very good player. I watched him when he was at Birmingham, and I think there was a few surprises when he went to Dortmund.
Yeah.
At a young age, but he was brave enough to go out there. Some people don't, especially English players don't like to go abroad. We've seen it happening more recently than when I used to go out to Italy. But for him to go out there to Dortmund and start every game and play the way he's playing, it's been great for him. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about him coming back. I'm not sure. You've got to be careful because obviously look at Sancho when he came back from Dortmund.
Yeah.
It didn't happen for him straight away. So I think why is he enjoying his football at Dortmund? Then play as long as he can. Be Champions League. But if he was to come back, then I'd think there'd be a few suitors after him. Mark mentioned Liverpool, mate, and I think that they'll all be after him.
Yeah.
City, Tottenham, Chelsea, a lot. But yeah, he's got potential to be a world-class player, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think. That's a very good diplomatic answer. That that's good, because I literally was thinking the same thing. I was actually going to ask you what do you think Bellingham should be looking at what happened with Sancho, and thinking about moving back to the Premier League with caution.
No, not at all. Listen, I think you look at Sancho now. I always kind of feel as a young kid, you're still kind of learning the game. Yeah, there was a lot of talk about Sancho in Germany, rightly so. But I think what you got to understand, and people, you look at the Bundesliga compared to the Premier League, it's very, very different. When you're playing for, a team like Dortmund, unless you're playing against PSG or, not PSG, Bayern Munich, Leipzig, then, most teams you're beating quite comfortably, 3-4-0. So, that's why he was doing so well in Dortmund. But then to come to a Man United team that wasn't functioning properly, there was obviously a few issues that were coming out from the club. So it was difficult to settle in at Old Trafford because there was a lot of stuff going on around Manchester United at the time. So he's now kind of learning it. He's grown into it. I think, it like anything for young kids, it takes time. It really, really does. I went to Man United young, at 22, and I need a year or so just to understand what Manchester United means and what it's all about, and how you have to perform week in and week out and conduct yourself and train well all the time. I think it takes time to understand the normality of how Manchester United is, and some people will, some people don't. And I think we're seeing signs now, Sancho, that he could be a great acquisition for Manchester United. So it's a completely different situation to where Jude Bellingham will come into if he was to go there. But at the moment, I think it's a case of, get the World Cup out of the way first, and then go from there.
Yeah. If you were his manager, Paul, right now, you'd be saying, stay put, just keep doing what you're doing. Yeah,
listen, I think, if he's still young, keep. I said the same about Declan Rice last year when a lot of clubs were after him. I said you've got plenty of time to make your big moves. You're still young. Get your game time, learn from your senior players, and I think that's what Jude should do. Listen, it's always tough when it's always tough when the big guns or the big clubs come calling, but it looks like to me that he's joining his time at Dortmund. So that, why would he want to move? But listen, we know eventually he's going to come back to England. It's just a case of which club he feels can get the best out of him when he does come back.
Yeah. And then I was going to say, what do you think the ceiling is for Bellingham? Do you think he's like England's next world-class talent? I mean,
listen, it's not, the things like, listen, I think we've got, a lot of players who could potentially be world-class players. We know we've got Harry Kane, who's world-class. Phil Foden, for me, he's going to turn into a world-class player. Declan Rice, and he's probably another one that you'd probably look at and think, yeah, if he continues to listen and learn and improve and, do things the right way, then he's another one who could be potentially a world-class player.
Mm. Yeah, I totally agree. I think with Bellingham, like you said at the beginning, his move to Dortmund really seems to have progressed him. Is that something that you think more young players should be doing, looking to kind of maybe some of the middle higher end German sides to get just more game time? And what do you think about that?
No, listen, I think it's great. I think we're seeing more of it now than we have done, in my time. I think it was different in my time because obviously going over to Italy, you had to speak Italian. You know what I mean? None of the players spoke English, so there was a language issue straight away. And nowadays, clubs are so cosmopolitan. They've got players from all over the world, and the majority of them speak English. So it's a lot more easier for young players to go over to these other countries and fit in straight away because they all can speak English and they all can get on. They all can communicate better. But yeah, listen, I like it. I think we see it too often. We see too many of these academies who have thousands and thousands of kids. You know what I mean? And half of them are just, staying there, playing in the 23s or playing in the 21s or whatever they've got. And none of them really want to go out and experience the real life of football. So the more I see people like Jude Bellingham, like Sancho, like Ampadu, players like that who want to go out and play and see the real world of football, the better it is for our national team.
Yeah, it's brave. It's brave of them to do it, and it just seems like it improves the player as a whole, immensely. To be honest, I mean that's my opinion as well. I think, but we move on to Harry Maguire and obviously his recent performances for England. If you were manager of England right now, what would you be saying to Harry Maguire to just lift his confidence?
Listen, I think one thing about Gareth Southgate, is that he picks Harry Maguire for England. I think Harry Maguire has been obviously very good for England. I really do. Obviously, take out a couple of mistakes from yesterday, but I think he's been very good for England. It's difficult because the situation is at the moment is that he's not playing for Manchester United. So he lacks match sharpness. I think if you look at the penalty yesterday, that was purely down to match sharpness. Really was. And then I think it's also tough because people are making a scapegoat out of him. We had the same situation with Raheem Sterling in the Euros, and now some fans have moved on to Harry Maguire, but he's captain. He's not captain mate night for nothing, and he has to deal with that. I think as a player, it's not nice. It's the same as for a manager. If you're winning games, everything's great, but then if you start losing games, you get booed, and that just comes with the territory. I think it's a case of, he's going to be a little bit down because he's not playing for Man United. Last year, he was captain of the team week in and week out. This year, under Ten Hag, he suddenly finds himself at the side. So, but you have to fight your way back in it. You have to fight to get your place. But one thing he should have confidence that Gareth Southgate's always picked him, and I believe he will continue to pick him.
Yeah.
So he should find a lot of confidence in that, and all he's got to do now is try and fight his way back into the Man United team before the World Cup starts. And this is the thing that people are saying. We've got players, who are not playing for their club. Who could probably spend the next 4 or 5 weeks not playing, yet going straight into a World Cup. Which is always going to be a bit of concern. I mean, I think fortunately for us that you look at our group, not being disrespectful, you look at Iran and United States, you can kind of get your fitness back in those games before you go for more challenging games in the last 16 quarters. But listen, I think, as a player, I think when you lose, we all lose confidence, everyone. There's not one player that I know who's never lost his confidence. And you have to battle your way through it. You have to come out the other end. You've got to be mentally tough. You can't let it affect you because you've got to move on. And as it's happened, he's been dealt a harsh hand, Harry Maguire. Some of the Man United fans having to go to the England fans, and I don't like to see it. I don't like to see our fans booing our own players. So it's not nice for him. But he's got, he's got broad shoulders. He's got to come through it. He's got to try and get back in the Man United first team, and hopefully, then go on to play for England in the World Cup.
Yeah, you're always going to have critics at this level. When you're playing for international, you're always going to have people analysing your every move. So I think you're right about that. But speaking about someone, I guess, in the opposite, position, like Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's obviously, he's playing for Liverpool week in, week out. But wasn't picked yesterday. I mean, would you have left Trent out yesterday if you had him in?
Listen, I think, Liam, we're kind of blessed. Listen, if he wants to go with the three at the back, then obviously you don't see Trent. He doesn't see Trent as a right wing back. That's for sure. But we're kind of blessed. You think about Trippier, think about Walker. We've got some really good fullbacks in there. So it would be surprising if he didn't go to the World Cup. I think if you look at what he does, I mean, it's tough because this time last year, he was like more or less carrying Liverpool, the way he was playing, his form was sublime. And because obviously Liverpool haven't really started the season how they would have liked, he's probably not been noticed as much as he was last year when they were chasing City for the title. So, but yeah, listen, I think when you're blessed with so many top fullbacks, someone has to miss out, whether it's Arnold or Trippier. That's not my decision, frankly. But listen, at least he's getting games, at least he's getting Champions League football, and he's playing week in and week out. But, it'd be disappointing not to be involved in the last two squads, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's one of the most, it is the most, competitive position in the England team at the moment. So you've got to feel for him to an extent, but it's a difficult one. I'm sure, I mean, Paul, I've seen you say, I pick this person, that person in the squad for the World Cup. But what's your, definitive starting 11 for the World Cup? If, Paul Ince is still down, making his team selection.
Oh, well, it'll have to be, Pickford have to be in goal.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be Walker, Stones, Maguire, Chilwell. This one all players all fit. Okay.
Yeah.
This is all players all fit.
Yeah.
Then I'd go Rice, Bellingham, Grealish.
Yeah.
The 2-1, and then I'd go Sterling, Kane, and Foden.
No Saka?
No.
Oh, I'm a Gooner, so that hurts me quite. Dagger to my heart.
Listen. It's not that he's not a very good player, because he's a talented player, but I just feel, you can, if you look at the Euros last year, and he kept changing, he went Saka, then he went Foden.
Yeah.
So I just think, listen, the good thing about England at this moment is they've got, plenty of strength in depth, plenty of top players, Saka being one of them. And sometimes it's hard to choose a team when you've got so many very good players. But I think for the starting game, that would be my first 11.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have as well. And Saka off the bench, I mean, yesterday he did really well coming off the bench with Mount. So
yeah, he got Mount. Obviously we don't know which strikers he's going to take yet.
Absolutely.
But
we haven't seen Tony yet. Like, that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, well, that was kind of, I think, looking at the Ivan Toney situation was I think it's one of those, he picks him but doesn't put him in none of the squads. And then I think people obviously saying, what's the point of taking him? What's the point of taking him? I think sometimes, I mean, when I used to be at England, and the manager would pick a player who's done well, and all of a sudden he won't be in the squad, but he'd just be there to take part in the training, just to be a part of it, just to be around it, see if we can, handle that level, playing with the best players in England. Sometimes it was that situation. So, that could be one of the reasons why he's not involved. Obviously, we're disappointed, because I think he's been brilliant, Ivan Toney, this year and last year. But if he's not involved in games, you're never going to are you going to select him for the World Cup? You know, so all he can do is just in the next 6 weeks is just try and play well and score as many goals as he can. We know about Harry Kane. You know, yet he played again all last night. You know, we haven't seen Tammy Abraham. He's been doing well at Roma. You know, because we can't always play Harry Kane. If Harry Kane was to get injured, you know, who's the next one? You know, on the conveyor belt, and we don't know at this moment of time. As I said, we'd like to see. I would like to see Tony. I would have liked to see Tony. You know, at least get 15, 20, 30 minutes. We know what Harry Kane can do.
He's a different prospect as well, isn't he, Tony? Like, brings a different threat.
Yeah, he does. He does, and you know, and listen, Tony Abraham's been doing well in Roma, so you know, we would have liked to see what his capabilities was, and you know, unfortunately, we haven't got to see that. But you know, that's England's manager's choice, not mine.
Yeah. So what do you think of England's chances of making the World Cup final?
Listen, it's going to be tough. You know, as an Englishman, proud Englishman, I'd love to say, yeah, we're going to go win the World Cup.
Yeah.
But there's some very, very good teams in it. You know, I watched the French play the other night. Not the game they got beaten by Denmark, but one before that. They were very, very good. You know, you always got the Brazilians, the Argentinians. You know, there's some very, very top quality teams in there. What I do know is that, you know, I expect us to breeze through the group stages. I really do. And then I think that's when it gets tough. I think we've got a chance. I might be wrong. We're playing the French in the last 16.
Yeah, I think it's the quarters or something. I think the French.
Yeah. So that's going to be a tough one. So listen, you know, I think everything has changed. Now people talk about whether not won in 6 games. And at times you can see, you know, the team's not playing with full of confidence at times, especially the game last night, especially after the second goal winning from Havertz. But you know, the fight back that they showed, you know, the desire, you know, and the ability to get back into the game was great to see, and it lifted the crowd.
Yeah,
but you can't keep doing that. You can't keep going down to 2-0 against teams like Germany and France and Spain. You won't get away with it. So, you know, but there was some positivity last night. You know, at the end of the game, we conceded 3 goals, but we also scored 3 goals.
Yeah.
But going into the World Cup, it's a completely different mindset. Everything that's gone on beforehand, Nations League or whatever it may be, qualifiers. This is the business part, and the mind changes. You know, it really, really does. So, and on their day with England, as I said, we've got some world-class players.
Yeah.
You know, one of the best strikers in the world, and Harry Kane. One of the most exciting talents in the world, or two, in Foden and Bellingham. So, listen, we've got a very good chance.
Yeah.
As an Englishman, I'd love to go and win it. But we've got some tough games to get through to if we're going to win the World Cup, and they know that. So let's just wait and see.
When it gets to knockout, it's anything can, you know, penalty shootouts and whatnot. Like it's such a game of small margins, isn't it? But if I can push you on to, what are your predictions for the 2 World Cup finalists? And it doesn't have to be England. Like, you know, as objective as you can be. Who are you thinking?
I'm going to probably say France and Brazil.
All right. Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with that, can you? 2 of the probably strongest teams at the moment. Yeah, you can't argue. But like, you mentioned obviously England's, you know, form, haven't won in, you know, I think it's like I said, last 8. Do you think this recent form matters when going into World Cup? I mean, you know, you would know more than anyone. Like, do you think about that much as a player, or does it go out the window when it gets to the World Cup?
No, I think you do, you know, because I think it's strange because of the World Cup is actually in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it's different than like when it's at the end of the season. You know, the Premier League was finished. You either won titles or not won titles, or got relegated. So, you know, I got picked for Champions League spots. So people will come in there in different kind of mentalities and attitude, really season. But I think this one is kind of strange because, you know, you've got a team that's probably maybe lacking a bit of confidence after getting beat 4-0 by Hungary.
Yeah.
Then obviously losing to Italy 1-0. But then you got a team, you kind of look back at your last game and you think, yeah, great performance, a good performance against Germany to get back into the game. But once you get on that plane, you know, and you get there and you just put all your bags away and you take your first training session and building up to the first game, it's just a completely different feeling. It's hard to explain unless you've actually experienced it, but it's a completely different feeling. It's like you're at the business end. It's like business time now. So what's gone on before is gone.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's what we do now that matters.
Yeah.
So, and that's always been the kind of mindset of the time that I've been with World Cups and Euros. It's what we do now that matters. Anything beyond that is irrelevant.
That's encouraging to hear anyway. Like, it gives us more hope anyway. But so I was going to say on the Nations League stuff, like, I mean, personally, really, you know, your own opinion. What do you think of the Nations League? Do you think it has merit? I mean,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I really do, because I always want to see. I used to hate playing friendlies for England. It's a hate, because they were never competitive. You know, I understand, you know, you got to go for the European qualifications and the World Cup qualifications, but when you had a friendly, you know, they weren't competitive. And sometimes, you know, England would be playing a friendly against a lesser team where they can go in 4 and 5-0, and you know, you see other teams winning 8 and 9-0 against these teams in friendlies, and it was, you know, for me, there was just no point to it. You know, and I love what UEFA have done with this. I love the way that they've pitched all the teams up from around their countries together in the same group. I love the way that we're now seeing big games, you know, yeah. Germany, England and Italy, Germany. These are games that you only normally see when you either in a World Cup quarterfinals or semi-finals. Now we're seeing them, you know, all the time. And I think it is competitive. Yeah. And there is a meaning to the end of it, you know. So it's not just a league where there's nothing at the end of it. There's something, you get rewarded for something. So I'm more into this competitive football than actually the times where teams are just playing friendlies and winning 7 and 8-0. I never watch them. These ones, I watch all of them.
I think it's just last on that. I think it's quite funny because it's, you know, when you hear England are getting relegated, it's such a weird thing, and to go, you know, you never hear that, and it's like it puts a lot more emphasis on trying to do better. I mean, the players must, you know, have some sort of, I mean, that you know, to go from 1-0 from, you know, lost to Italy to then 3-3, there's obviously a reaction there. So yeah,
it is sad. It's funny. It's something strange, but as I said, it has to be competitive. And you know, when you look to that group with Germany, Italy, Hungary, you'd probably expect Hungary to be getting relegated, but they were the dark horses. Yeah, you know, they'd beat England and Germany in the league, which you couldn't foresee. But yeah, it's disappointing. But the point of the matter is that everything's competitive and there's something to play for. And that's never been the case when you played in friendlies.
Sure. Okay, yeah. So a few questions on Gareth Southgate at the moment and how he's doing so far. So yeah, be as honest or as you know, subjective, objective as you like. But do you think Gareth is, you know, has done a good job with the squad selection over the Nation League game? Or do you think he's missed the boat a bit? I don't know.
Listen, I think it's tough as a manager, because as I say, I'm in the same seat as Gareth, but you know, I think, you know, what we got to do as a team is find out how we going to play. You know, what is our identity? Are we going to play counter-attacking football like we saw times like yesterday?
Yeah.
Come in behind the ball, or are we going to go on the front foot like we did against Germany? You know, when we were 2-0 down. You know, what type of team are we? So that's, and by deciding what type of team are we, then you can then pick your personnel based on that. Yes, you've got to have plan B and plan C, I get that. But first and foremost, how do we want to play? So listen, I think when you're always kind of picking teams, everyone's got an opinion. Everyone has an opinion. He should be in the squad, he should be playing. You know, why is he not in the squad?
Everyone's an England manager.
They are, and it's tough because, you know, you're trying to find the right people, the right solutions. You know, so it's a tough job. And as I said before, Liam, when you've got so many players at your disposal, so many top class players playing in the Premier League, it becomes tougher and tougher. And for me, listen, the most important thing South would be worried about now is picking the right players and the right personnel for the first game against Iran. You know, that's all that matters now. As I've said, yeah, it was disappointing getting relegated, but for me, we need to move on. And Southie, knowing Southie as I do, will be focused now on getting the right, thinking about the right squad. Who am I going to take? Who am I not going to take? Telling the players that they're not going, telling the players that they're going. You know, these are all tough decisions that he has to make, and not a position I would like to be in, to tell someone that he's not going to the.
I was going to put you in it a little bit, because I was thinking, are there any exclusions that have been left out so far that have shocked you?
You know what, Liam? It's so tough though, because you know, if you ask me this in 6 months' time when the Premier League's finished, I could tell you. Yeah. You know, we're actually talking about 2 months into the Premier League. You know, so it's actually hard to answer that question. I think if I looked at obviously Trent not being in there is obviously one. Obviously, I'd like to see Ivan Toney take some part in the games the last 2 weeks. But no, if you look at surprises, no, it's not really. I think Southie would probably know 95% of his squad that he's taken to Qatar. It's just sitting down with obviously Steve Holland and the staff and deciding who the other 5% are going to be. So
October is going to be crazy with games. I mean, I imagine there's going to be an injury in there somewhere. Like, you know, touch wood, obviously, but like October, the fixture list for October is just it's heavy.
Well, listen, ours is just as bad and all. You know, we've got 7 games in October. We've got 3 games in 6 days. So, you know, we haven't got squads like the Premier League has. But I think as a player, it's always kind of tricky because you're kind of half playing for your club, and obviously that's your priority is your club. They pay your wages, but you also got half thinking, don't get injured, you know, and you subconsciously got that in the back of your mind. You know, I always felt when I was going to France '98 that, yeah, I still play the way I normally play, but I just like pray God, please, that you don't get injured or don't get something happen to you. And this is the case, as you said, Liam, when there's so many games coming up, you know, fatigueness, you know, things can happen. So you could be sitting here now as England manager thinking, right, this is my squad, right, I've settled on that. Yeah. And then 3-4 weeks down the line, you could have 2 or 3-4 injuries, which changes your whole planning. So touch wood, that won't be the case.
I'm the same, Paul, and I play Sunday League, and I'm like, I hope I don't get injured over our cup run and all this kind of stuff. So I can't imagine what the players are thinking, like, you know. But what about Calvin Phillips? Do you think would you take him to the World Cup?
If he's fit, I think he'd be disappointed, obviously, not to be involved because of injury. But yeah, I think when he first started playing things, I think his performance was very, very good. Yeah. And you don't go to Manchester City if you're not a top class player. It's just a case of, again, you know, he's injured. How long is it going to be? When's he going to be back training? When's he going to be back fit? Yeah. You know, you also got to think you've got, you know, Rice there, you've got Bellingham there, you've got Henderson coming back in now. You know, 3 midfield players of that type. So it's just a case of when he can get back playing for Southie to decide what he does with him. But he's a very talented player, that's for sure.
And then final question on England. I think you've kind of answered it already, but would you, if like I said, if putting you in the manager's seat again, would you now switch back to a back 4, or would you stick with a back 3 with what we've got at our disposal?
I think if you kind of, you know, I think it's got to be horses for courses. I think, listen, you know, I'm at Reading and I play a back 3, which has served us okay this season. If I felt there'd be advantage for us to play a back 4 against the opposition, then I'll do it. And I think, you know, managers and teams have to be flexible, and you have to have players in your squad who can be that flexible. We've seen the free work. You know, you've got to remember Southie, who played you know, England, we played in the United Six, we played with a free.
Mm.
So a lot of teams that are playing free at the back, you know, especially in the Championship, a lot of teams are playing it. So, but you have to be quite diverse, and you have to be very flexible, and you have to be willing to change formations in the game, depending how the game's going. Yeah. So, you know, I think, listen, at the moment he's stuck with a free. That's not to say that, you know, against Qatar he's going to go with a free, or against USA he's going to go with a free. Yeah. You know, you be very, very flexible in your formations for me. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's sensible, to be fair. Eli, I was just wondering how we're doing for time. I'm about over halfway through, so I've just got, you know, some Manchester. Try and get through quicker. Sorry, Paul. I've got a few Manchester and Liverpool questions for you.
Okay, let's be quick then.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Don't worry. So yeah, we go on Manchester United. Well, here's an easy one for you. Do you think Manchester United, with their you know, very late transfer business, will get top 4 this season?
Listen, I think it's going to be tough. You know, as I said, there's a lot of top teams in the league. I think what we're kind of hopefully seeing is a turnaround now. Ten Hag's only just walked through the door, but things look a lot better than they have been. So, listen, I think he's put some good players in. Those players need to settle in. They've had some very good results. They've started the Premier League very, very well. So I think they'll be up there. I think they'll be challenging, and I think that's, you know, what United fans want. That's what United fans expect, is for you know, one of the biggest teams in the world to be challenging for the Champions League. So yeah, I expect to be up there.
Well, as an Arsenal fan, I hope not, but I've got to be unbiased. So anyway, but yeah, what do you think? You know, with the new recruits that have come in, what do you think Man United's best midfield is? And you know, you can give me a formation as well. But who would you put in Man United's midfield?
I still feel, obviously, that Casemiro's come in, which is, I think, was a massive bit of business. You know, to have that help to come to Man United was great. Eriksen has fitted in like a glove. He gives them something completely different. And all you're hoping is that them two players have an influence on the likes of McTominay and Fred. You still got Fernandes in front of them too. So, you know, bringing in top players like that, you know, can only help the other younger players. So, you know, I think it's important to see the club, you know, going forward. I still think McTominay's a very good player, and I think he'll get better playing alongside Casemiro and Eriksen. And they look to have a good balance. If you play Casemiro and McTominay, I mean, you can mix about. As I said, the Premier League teams have got squads are so big, they can mix about with their teams and formations. You know what I mean? They've got so much depth. But you know, I like the business that Man United have done, and you know, because of maybe, you know, Liverpool's slow start and, you know, Chelsea's slow start, then, you know, they've got a chance of Champions League. And so, you know, I'm sure they're trying to do some more business over the next January. But this has always been a project for Ten Hag. And, you know, I think for Man United to be successful, you just can't keep sacking managers. So hopefully Ten Hag will be there for a long time.
Yeah. And then, like, do you think there's a midfield player in the summer transfer window that they missed out of, they should have brought in? Bellingham, maybe? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think Dortmund will let Bellingham go. I don't think, you know what I mean? I think if you know, these be fine at that from these big clubs. If they want someone, 9 times out of 10, they normally get them. So, you know, there was no signs or messages coming out from Dortmund that Bellingham wanted to leave. So that was never going to be happening. But I think you can't rush into these things. You know, if you're having a project at a club, then you can't just rush into things, and you've got to take your time, and you've got to be given time. So long as Ten Hag's been given time, you know, then we'll be fine. You know, he'll be able to pick the ones that he requires. But then again, you know, as I said about Jude Bellingham, that they won't be the only club after him. Loads of clubs after him. So we'll see.
Yeah, and then moving on. You know, well, I guess this has been talked to death, but with Ronaldo, do you think it was a mistake for Man United to keep him at the club? You know, what do you think?
No, not at all. Listen, Ronaldo, you know, he's a serial winner. He's one of the greatest players ever to play football. And he has an influence on the pitch and in the change room. You forget last year he scored 18 goals.
Yeah.
You know, take those 18 goals away, you know, where would Man United have been? So, you know, those type of players don't come along very easily. So, listen, he's what he wants to play football. I get that. And he will get games at United. And I think, he's just got to be patient and his time will come, So, again, for me, it's important to keep your best players, and Ronaldo is definitely a world-class player, even at his age.
Yeah, I think that's about right as well. But I guess another talking point of Man United, which everyone's talking about this season, is the Glazers. Do you think the fans should continue to protest the ownership of the club? Like, what's your assessment?
I don't really get involved in that type of stuff.
Yeah.
As a manager, all you do is you talk about football and you worry about football.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for me to be fair on what actually the fans should do or fans shouldn't do. Yeah. All you want your supporters or your fans to do is to support the team.
Yeah.
Mate, I've always done that. And I can see the reason behind it, but sometimes it can be a distraction to the team.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the thing they've got to think about. But yeah, I understand where United fans are with the owners. But for me, as a manager, you never really talk about the owners. You just talk about football. And I'm more interested in what Man United have done on the pitch rather than what's going on off the pitch. To be fair, I'm sure Ten Hag will be the same.
Yeah, I think you're right. Obviously at Arsenal, we had massive protests about the Cronkies, and then look what happened. A couple of 6 wins on the trot, and then everyone's loving life again. So football, there's such a short memory in football. I feel like it is.
It is. I remember the Arsenal.
You don't think about the owners when they're doing good. It's only when things are going bad you kind of start in but I was just gonna final question just on on Rashford, and do you think that this season for him is make or break, or do you think he might need to leave to get some more game time, and what do you think his future looks like?
Oh, listen, I think Rashford again. When he came on the scene, you think, wow, this kid's amazing, special, and he still is. I think he's had a few injuries. He's had a few knockbacks. He's lost a little bit of confidence, but like players will tell you, sometimes you go through those dips, and then it takes a new manager to come in and give him a lift, and it looks like he's got that lift. It looks like the way he's playing, he's got his vibe back. He's got his vibes back, because listen, talent-wise, he's a world-class player. He can be a world-class player. Yeah. Just lost that kind of.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you a few questions about the derby on the weekend, City United derby. So what would your advice be for Ten Hag with his first United derby, or Manchester derby? Sorry.
Enjoy it. You've got to enjoy it. As I said, United are in a good place. The players are playing well. And again, like you talk about, when it comes to derby games, form just goes out the window. It's not about who's first, who's second, who's fifth, who's last. And it's a bragging rights for both sets of fans, and it's a one-off. Yeah. And anything can happen. But I think as a manager, I think when you're world class or top class manager like he is, when he left Ajax to experience these games, to be part of these games, to put his wits up against one of the greatest coaches in the world in Pep. That's where he's left Ajax to go to. So but you've got to enjoy it. If I was a manager, I said, you've got to enjoy these moments, because they're the moments that you experience. And they're the moments you want to experience as a manager and as a player.
Yeah, and then how would as your manager hat on, how would you contain Erling Haaland?
Just got to hope he has an off day. You just got to hope he has an off day. Listen, you have some players, and you think, you kind of look at them, study them and think, right, we need to do this and need to do that. But then some players are unstoppable. You know, some players, you know, when you watch Messi and he gets on his left foot, you know what he's going to do. You know he's going to jink inside, but you just can't stop it because he's that good. And it's the same with Haaland. You know, his movement's fantastic. If he gets a chance, 9 times 10 out he's going to finish it. So, you know, you just hope that he will get a chance. Haaland, there's how many chances you restrict him to. So if he's tricked into a couple, then you might come away and win the game. But I think also, you know, as a manager, you want to put your own stamp on it. You know, you can't spend most of the time worrying about their players. You've got to worry about what we do as a team. And yes, we know the dangers, but you know, we have to implement our style and go there, you know, and try and get a result. But they're great games. You know, I've played in enough of them. They're fantastic games. You have atmosphere is unbelievable. So yeah, they're great games to play in. So yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it. I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be interesting from a neutral.
Don't get carried away. Listen,
I don't mind what happens, to be fair. No.
You know, Jesus Christ.
I mean, to be fair, we've got Spurs, so obviously, you know.
So fair, yeah. That's good day, because you want the Premier League to be exciting.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, the last 2 or 3 years, it's been, you know, Liverpool City, and then, yeah, there have been good races between the two of them. But you want the Arsenals in there, you want the Tottenhams, you want the Chelseas, you want the big clubs in there, and make it exciting.
Do you think Arsenal, just off the cuff, do you think Arsenal could win the league?
Yeah, listen, I can't, because I can't see past City. But I love what Arteta's doing. You know, I do. You know, I look to him improving year after year, and he's brought some really good players. But you know, my boys are Arsenal fans. You know, my 2 sons are Arsenal. So if they do win it, I'll be getting it in the ear.
That technically makes you an Arsenal fan as well, doesn't it?
I'm West Ham. I don't worry about that. But listen, it's great to see him up there, and you know, you've been there before, remember. So no, listen, you've got a long way to go, but it'll be a good challenge against Tottenham. We're a very good side at the moment, also.
It'll be a good test, I think. But yeah, just I'll jump onto Liverpool questions, and I think we're done, Paul. To be fair, but yeah, just a few Liverpool ones really. So with Jurgen Klopp looking sort of under pressure in his press conferences. I mean, he's not the real bubbly Jurgen Klopp that we know. What do you think's gone wrong Liverpool this season?
Listen, I think people don't understand. You know what I mean? You know, there's so much pressure on managers. You know what I mean? To get results. You know, we've seen managers lose their jobs after 10 games, and everybody wants to win, but not everyone can win. And I think, you know, you look at what Klopp's done over the last 5 years at Liverpool. It's been extraordinary. It's been absolutely amazing, incredible. No one can envisage, you know, when Klopp walked through the door, what he was going to give those Liverpool fans and us, you know, in the type of football that he plays. And, you know, as I mentioned before, the race between him and Pep, you know, was scintillating. You know, all our eyes was focused on that. So Klopp's given us some wonderful moments, some great moments. And at the moment, you know, it's one of those where, you know, you kind of lost your midfield. You know, you lost Marnie, which is, for me, is a big loss. Yeah. And they're just trying to probably go for a little transition. You know, at this moment of time, a lot of clubs do it. Fergie was a genius at it. Yeah. For a transition, and sometimes these things take time. So, is he happy? Of course he's not. You know, Klopp's a winner. He wants to be winning.
Would you have sold Mane? You were there?
I think sometimes it's not closer to signing Mane. I think sometimes if a player wants to leave the club, then it's very hard to stand in his way. You know, we've seen it time and time again. I think when you go back to Firmino, Mane, Salah, you know, watching them players as a trio was absolutely fantastic. And obviously Jota came back of it, and you know, he's joined that lot. And then I seem to have gone down, obviously, the big striker with Nunes, and that takes time. That takes time, you know. So listen, yeah, I don't listen. You know, they'll be up there, Liverpool. They're too good not to be up there. As I said, they need to get their midfield players back. They've lost a few of those.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of change. So they're too good a side not to be up there.
Yeah, I think you're right, to be fair. And then what I mean, isn't it? Well, here's a kind of easy one. Who would you prefer, Nunes or Haaland, running the attack?
At Reading, I'll take both of them, to be fair. I think Haaland's incredible. I think to get the money that City paid for him, Dortmund was a great bit of business. I really do. And you know, he's probably a world-class player already, even at such a young age. Yeah. I think Nunes will take a little bit of time. As I've said, it didn't really help when he got sent off against Palace. That kind of stopped his progression in playing week in and week out for Liverpool after he scored against Fulham. So that will take a bit of time, and he's still young. So there's a change in things at the moment, but I think Haaland's, you're taking all day long.
Do you think, like with I guess we're going back to Trent a little bit, but do you think his lack of form, I guess, and lack of assists this season is a bit of a worry for him, especially with the squad, or what do you think on that?
Who are we talking about, Liam?
Trent Alexander-Arnold. Sorry, Paul.
No, yeah. What's the question again?
I was just saying, do you think his lack of assists this season and not being in scintillating form, do you think that's a worry for not just the World Cup, but just for him for the rest of the season? Or do you think he'll pick up?
No, not so. Listen, for me, I mean, you talk about, it's like for me that players can't have a different form. Essentially, every player has a different form.
Yeah.
It's this thing. I had plenty, but when you look at his quality, no one can put crosses in like he does. Some of his is on a different planet. It really is. And I think you can't use, because people think that Liverpool are out of form, that Trent's out of form.
Yeah.
No one's mentioned Van Dijk or anyone else. I just mentioned Trent.
Yeah.
And that's not right. So Liverpool had a slow start. That's all it is. And these players are world-class players, or very, very good players.
Yeah.
And they get through these spells. But then every time I've seen Trent, I've always liked Trent. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful player.
Yeah.
And he gives us Liverpool something, and England something that they don't have. No one can put balls into the box like he does.
Yeah.
So, as I said, it's a long season. There's a lot of things that can happen, and as I said, Liverpool will be up there. That's in my opinion, anyway. That's for sure.
I was going to say, well, kind of going on the opposite of that, a little bit of a hypothetical. But what do you think has to, how bad would results get for Liverpool? Do you think for Klopp to start worrying about his job, or do you think that they should stick with him through the hard times? I'll give it a little bit of a hypothetical. If Liverpool were in the bottom half of the table for Christmas, think that's bad enough, or do you think Liverpool will stick by him through thick and thin?
Listen. Klopp is a world-class manager. Okay, world-class manager, and whether they're fifth from bottom, for me, you don't sack world-class managers. I think Klopp will decide when he wants to leave.
Yeah,
that he's earned that in what he's given Liverpool football and Liverpool town.
Yeah,
since he's been there. And I hate it when people's trying to say, well, if he loses this, should he be worried about his job?
Yeah.
It winds me up big time. So, as I've said, he's a world-class manager, and people like Pep, they decide when they move on to different adventures or past, and he deserves that merit and respect for that and all.
Yeah. I agree, to be fair. I think, we had it with Wenger. It's one of those things that someone who's brought a lot of success to the club need to, Eli, I think just one more question. I think we're wrapping up. Thanks for time, Paul. I think just one from Reading really would be, what do you think's been your biggest challenge since taking the role, since taking the manager job at Reading?
Um, I think good question. That I think I've had a few challenges. Obviously, we've got this embargo.
Yeah.
At the moment. It's been tough, especially in the transfer window, because all we can do really is get loanies or free transfers.
Yeah.
You know, you can't buy any money. So, you know, we haven't been fishing from, we haven't been shopping from the same shops. You know what I mean? I haven't been sitting at the big table like the rest of the championship teams. So that's been tough because, you know, a lot of the targets that you look at, you know, they want to come, and then obviously we're getting outbid by other people, and you know, because they've got more money than us and our budget's that low. Yeah. So you're losing out a lot of players, but you know, it's in a way, funny, perverse way, Liam. It's been, you kind of enjoy it. You know, you enjoy it. You enjoy the challenge. You enjoy when you know you have to put a team together when you haven't got all the kind of avenues that all the other championship teams have had. And you know what we put together as a team, you know, where the lads have got a great spirit, good players, great spirit, great togetherness, no bad eggs, and you know, it's a great place to be at, you know, and you know, I kind of feel that, you know, when you've got when you've got that feeling where you want to come into work every day and work with these players, and you know, they don't energy zap you. You know, they just go out trying to ground, they do their work to the best they possibly can, and then they come back in, they do it day after day, and you know, go out on a Saturday or midweek and give you everything they've got, whether they win or draw. You know, they just try to do their best, and as a manager, that's all you can ask for. And I think, you know, I've also got, you know, we're trying to build something here. You know, it's going to take time because of the embargo that we've got, but we've got an owner who's very understanding. And, you know, Sir Alex Ferguson always said to me, if you're going to manage a football club, make sure you pick the owner, not the football club. And I've been very fortunate that we've got an owner who lets us get on with it. Mark Bowen now is a football director, so we have a great relationship. We understand where we are as a club at this moment of time, and most importantly, you know, the fans understand it. You know, they understand that, you know, the remit for this year has to be to stay in the league. Yes, we've had a good start, but the remit is to stay in this league, because then once the embargo is lifted, we can start planning for the future. And that's
I was gonna say, well, I think you had an amazing start. Like, honestly, you know, is it just one of those things that you're thinking potentially it could be Premier League? You never.
No, I don't. I never have to, because I look at where we are, and then, you know, it could take. You know, as I said, we've got a small squad, so we lose 2 or 3 players like we did at Blackpool, and all of a sudden you start losing games. But the Championship's so tough, it's so hard, and for us this year, the remit's always been to stay in this league. Yeah. And I understand that, the fans understand that. Yeah, people get a bit excited when you starting off well, but the owner understands it, and Mark Bowen understands it. And when you've got everybody who understands where we have to be, then that's great, because you get to there, then you can look at see where you are after that. So yeah, we've had a good start, and you know, it's been great. And, but I feel like, you know, in all the clubs that I've been, you know, you always go into a club as a manager, go, yeah, we've got a project here, this is the project, and we want to do this year and that year, and before you know, after 10, 15 games, you lost your job. Yeah. You know, I feel comfortable here with this, obviously with this club. You know, listen, you never know, if you lose 10, 12, 15 on the bounce, you're going to lose your job. Right? Yeah. But I just feel with this owner and the fans and that, you know, I've got more of a chance of doing a project here than I would do that at many other clubs. So, and that's a good feeling to have.
Oh yeah, well, that seems about right. Thanks very much for your time, Paul.